Local Planning Agency on February 6, 2025. Can I get a motion to approve the last minutes?
Well, we have no minutes to
Oh,
approve, but
okay, well, we don't need a motion then, do we?
no.
All right. We only have one item on today. Do we have any public comment on non-agenda items? Okay. First, I need to ask whether any of our members have had.
I have no
any-
ex parte communications to divulge.
And I've had no ex parte communications. All parties that are going to testify, please stand and be sworn in.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the evidence you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Okay. Please begin, Mr. Elam.
Thank you, members of the LPA. For the record, Brian Elam, I'm the principal planner with Growth Management. Copy of my work history is on file with the clerk. The applicant has also offered into evidence resumes and a Hope Sound storage fact sheet, which is on file with the clerk. Public comment through January 9th, from January 9th through 28th is part of this agenda item. And I just wanted to turn in 2 additional ones that we received after that for the record. So this is a request by Thomas Engineering Group LLC on behalf of Live Oak Capital Partners for approval of a major final site plan to construct a 3-story, approximately 94,132 square foot residential storage facility and associated infrastructure on an approximate 4-acre undeveloped property. Included with this application is a request for a certificate of public facilities reservation. The property is located east of Southeast Federal Highway, approximately 0.28 miles south of Southeast Heritage Boulevard, south of Bethel Lutheran Church, and north of the water treatment facility in Hope Sound. On the east and west sides of the property is right-of-way. The existing zoning district on the property is RS-6, medium-density residential district with a medium-density underlying future land use. Residential storage facilities are not a permitted use in the RS-6 zoning district. A comprehensive plan amendment is scheduled to be heard on February 11th, 2025 before the Board of County Commissioners proposing a change in future land use from medium density to commercial general, and a change in zoning district classification from RS6 medium density residential to GC general commercial. Residential storage facilities are permitted use in the GC general commercial zoning district. This is the site plan. Access to the property is proposed from one location from Southeast Federal Highway. A deceleration lane is proposed for vehicles entering the site, and the existing sidewalk will be routed to the east for the length of the property, then back west to continue as it exists presently. Approximately 2.61 acres of the site consists of wetland buffer, and upland scrub reserve that will be maintained and restored where necessary as defined in the Preserve Area Management Plan. The proposal meets or exceeds the requirements for a building in the general commercial zoning district. The allowable building coverage in general commercial zoning is 60%, and this proposal is 18%. The proposed building height is below the 40-foot threshold permitted, and the proposed 77% open space exceeds the 20% minimum open space permitted in GC zoning. Here's one of the landscape plan sheets. Almost all existing trees on site not within the developable area are to remain. Open space areas around the building are to have sod, shrubs, trees. Retention areas are planned with native ground covers and trees. Matter of fact, I think all of the landscaping is native in nature. I wish this were clearer. You can see all along the open space setback areas will be planted with trees and shrubs. Here's a view of the elevation drawings. The proposed architectural design satisfies commercial design criteria with the use of parapets, decorative cornice, and brackets, changes in height and screening of rooftop air conditioning. Building mass is controlled with offset wall planes, decorative shutters, and awnings over windows, and the customer entrance. Development review staff have found the Live Oak Capital Partners application to comply with all applicable regulations in the Comprehensive Growth Management Plan is detailed in the staff report. Staff's recommendation of approval of the Live Oak Capital Partners application for major final site plan approval, and preserve area management plan for the Hobe Sound Storage Project is contingent upon the Board of County Commissioners approving an amendment to the future land use map to assign a commercial general future land use and rezoning from RS6 medium-density residential to general commercial GC zoning district. That concludes the presentation. Be happy to answer any questions.
Jim?
I don't remember having a final site plan before a land use and zoning change was instituted. I've been doing this for 22 years.
The comprehensive plan amendments must go first and must pass. Otherwise, this will be, I imagine, withdrawn.
Yeah, so Elise Elder, Deputy County Attorney. So the board will hear the future land use map amendment first. If that passes, they'll hear the rezoning, and then right after that, they'll get the site plan. This board already heard the future land use and the rezoning like a year or so ago, a while back. So it's just this is traveling separately because this wasn't ready when those two went forward. But the board will hear the first two first and then do the site plan. So it'll be appropriate if they're passed.
So I don't specifically remember I think I do remember the future land use on a storage unit, but it was under Live Oak, not Babbitt. I'm just concerned that we've got a bunch of different balls that are in the air right now.
So Babbitt is the owner of the land. Live Oak Capital Partners is the applicant.
Why don't we,
Contract
why don't we wait for Mr. Raines to go into that?
And I believe they've all been involved since the beginning. Nobody's new right now.
Right.
Okay. Any other questions, Jim?
No.
You have any questions, Mr. Brown? No, and I have no questions. So can we hear from Mr. Raines?
Good evening.
Oh, 1 minute. I did not read the title, and I think I should. Should I not, Ms. Elder, or does it matter?
I think Mr. Elam covered it, so we're okay
He
for
did?
that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good evening, gentlemen. For the record, my name is Bob Raines, and I'm a land use attorney with the Gunster Law Firm, and I'm here this evening on behalf of the applicant. And I would like to begin by having the record reflect that I have with me the proof of notices to the surrounding property owners for both the hearing this evening and the BCC meeting on Tuesday, and that I'm turning those into the clerk at this time. So, in a moment, I'm going to have, we're going to make a short presentation. I'm going to have Brandon Ulmer, who is our engineer, come up. We also have with us our environmental consultant and also a representative of Live Oak, who can also answer any questions that you might have. So I think we have everybody here that might be able to answer any questions that you might have. So Mr. Ulmer will be up in a second, but I wanted to just cover a few points before he comes up. You know, I've been doing land use here in Martin and St. Lucie County for over 28 years. I can't remember a matter where a client met and attempted to meet with the neighbors as much as Mr. Tedder has over the last 2 years. We actually had our first meeting with the board representatives from the Heritage Ridge POA and also the Pastel POA, which is across the street from this property. And we met with them before we even filed any applications, and also their attorney, Deborah Ross, was also present at that meeting. Subsequent to that, we've had, Mr. Tedder especially has had more meetings than I can count with Mr. Sullivan and the board. Mr. Sullivan is here this evening, and they've submitted a letter of support for this project. And on top of that, after numerous meetings with those individuals, through the graciousness of Mr. Sullivan, he was able to coordinate for us an open house meeting with the entire community. So all the residents at Heritage Ridge were invited to this meeting, and it went very well. It was well attended, in spite of the fact that a couple of the residents were trying to discourage the people from coming to the meeting to find out what the facts were. But that meeting, I think, went very well, and most of the people left very satisfied with what we were proposing to do. And since that time, we've continued to stay in contact with Mr. Sullivan and the rest of his board, and if there were any questions or anything that they needed answered, we were there for that. Mr. Tedder also met with the pastor of the church next door prior to any applications being filed, and we continued to reach out to try to correspond with them over time. And that pastor had left, and there was a time, I think, and Mr. Tedder can address some of these if you have any questions, but there was a time when that, I think, seat was vacant, that office was vacant, and but he continued to try to reach out to people at the school that's also operated there. We had, numerous contacts with people that we were hearing comments from, and Mr. Tedder made every effort he could. And I've got a 2-page list, as a matter of fact, of all the efforts that he tried to make in reaching out to those folks. So I think we've done a very good job of trying to communicate with the neighbors. And so with that being said, I know that some of the comments and concerns, which are understandable but unwarranted, deal with basically what I could ascertain, three kind of topics: flooding, traffic / kind of accidents, and crime / safety. So Mr. Ulmer will, I think, address certainly the first two, and maybe a little bit of the third one with some of the security measures that we're going to have. But Mr. Tedder also is in a position to address those concerns. But with that, I would like to ask Mr. Elam a couple of questions that sort of, I think, answer and address those concerns, if that's okay.
Okay with me if it's okay with her.
Yep.
Perfectly.
And Mr. Elam.
Oh, he doesn't count.
He doesn't have a choice. No, I'm kidding. No, Mr. Elam, I think you said, sir, you turned in your resume for the record, correct?
That's correct.
Can you just give us a quick, brief background of your education and your work experience? Just brief.
You never asked me that one.
I got to keep you on your toes.
Well, I've been a principal planner, or a planner here at Growth Management, I believe 2 years, going on 2 years. Before that, I worked for Palm Beach County as a planner also for about 7 years. And then prior to that, I did an assortment of jobs, including aerospace, capacitor design, and a lot of project management on large jobs.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to just turn your attention, if I could, for 1 second, to the staff report that was issued. That's dated 12/11/2024. Do you have that in front of you? Or can you?
I could bring it up,
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you.
I think. Oh, probably.
Yep, the one,
Is that 12/11?
yes, sir, 12/11/2024.
Okay.
And if we could, let's go to section F quickly, if you don't mind. So, it's down, okay, right.
Yes.
So section F is, it says the determination of compliance with the comprehensive growth management plan requirements. And obviously it addresses the contingency on the future land use change, which I think we all understand that this major site plan will be contingent upon that being approved at the BCC. But under your findings of compliance, it says, staff has reviewed this application and finds that it complies with the LDRs as detailed within the report. Staff recommends approval of this development application as consistent with the guidelines and standards of the applicable comprehensive goals, objectives, policies as implemented in the LDRs. Is that correct? Is that reading correct? And is that still, that recommendation still stands, sir?
Yes.
And is that your responsibility to make that finding?
Yes.
Okay. And then in item G, right below that, if we can go to that. And then that's a determination of compliance with the land use, the site design standards, zoning, and procedural requirements of the Growth Management Department. Again, is that your responsibility to make that determination?
Yes.
And that reads, if I'm correct, staff has reviewed this application and finds that it complies with the LDRs as detailed within the staff report. Staff recommends approval of the development application as consistent with the guidelines and the standards of the applicable comprehensive plan goals, objectives, and policies as implemented in the LDRs.
That's correct.
And that still stands, sir?
Yes, sir.
And I want to, you're also responsible for assimilating and putting all the information together and making that determination based on all the other departments, correct?
Yes.
So if I could, let's go to section K. Okay, yeah, great. And that's the determination of compliance with transportation requirements from the engineering department. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And there's been some discussion about the amount of traffic this is going to generate and the concern of traffic and all of that. And this says in there, if I'm not, that findings of compliance, the Traffic Division of the Public Works Department finds this application is in compliance, and that compliance with the adequate public facilities ordinance, this application satisfies the adequate public facility standards. It has a de minimis impact, an impact that would not affect more than 1% of the maximum volume of the adopted level of service of the affected road facilities, correct?
That's correct.
And that was made by someone in the engineering
That was made
department?
by our traffic engineer, yes, based, I'm sure, upon analyzing the submittal from your traffic
Correct.
engineer.
All right, so that's a de minimis impact, correct?
That's correct.
And then the last thing I just wanted to address with you, and I appreciate everybody's patience, is if we can go to item M, down below there. Determination of compliance with engineering, stormwater, and flood management requirements. And that's an engineering determination. If we go down under finding of compliance, there's been discussion about flooding in this area and that this property could cause flooding to that area or exacerbate the flooding. And in here, it says in Division 9, stormwater management, the applicant has demonstrated the proposed development will retain the 25-year, 3-day storm event prior to discharging into an adjacent wetland connected to the East Fork Creek drainage basin. The applicant proposed a stormwater system consisting of dry retention areas and supporting drainage infrastructure. The applicant demonstrated the water quality volume is being met and the proposed prior to discharge, thereby the required attenuation and water quality treatment is in compliance with Division 9. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And again, that was provided by the engineering department.
Yes.
And the last one I just wanted to point out too is Flood Protection Division 10, right below that. The site does not fall within a special flood hazard area. I think there may have been a letter that said it wasn't a flood zone, but the applicant demonstrated that the minimum finished floor elevation of 17.75 feet NAVD is set at or above the maximum predicted stage of 100-year, 3-day storm event. Therefore, the applicant demonstrated compliance with Division 10. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right, thank you, sir. With that, I'd like to have Mr. Ulmer come up, and he can make a short presentation. And then I may have Mr. Tedder come up just to make a few comments on some of his role in this.
You can do whatever you'd like during your 1.5 minutes left.
I appreciate it. He's panicking because he thinks you need that.
Did you want this here?
Let me just qualify Mr. Ulmer here, I'm sorry. Mr. Ulmer, you've been sworn in, correct, sir?
Yes.
And can you state your name for the record?
Brandon Ulmer.
And can
You have to speak into the microphone, guys, otherwise they're not going to pick you up.
Sure. Sorry, Brandon Ulmer.
And can you, sir, give us a brief description of your education and background and work history?
Yeah, so I have a engineering degree from Florida State. I am registered professional engineer with the state of Florida. I've been doing it for over 22 years. Worked for a number of different firms.
And can you identify the paper I'm handing you, sir?
Yes. Yep.
And what is that?
Yep. That's my reference.
Your
Background
resume?
resume, yeah.
And is that an accurate, up-to-date resume?
Yes.
I'd like to turn this in if I could. I did already submit these to the record, but I'd like to submit it to the clerk for this hearing. And you prepared the presentation and worked on this project, is that correct?
Correct. In its entirety.
All
Yep.
right, thank you. Go right ahead.
Thank you. So again, Brandon Ulmer for the record.
You want me to do that, or?
So we started this project a number of years ago. I was with Thomas Engineering, and the project was started with Thomas Engineering, and I have since moved to Mills Short and Associates, so that's why you see that on there. So just wanted to point out the rendering, the style and you know, modern look of the building, and you know, all the features that Mr. Elam pointed out. So let's see. All right, let's do that. There we go. All right, perfect. So this is a slide, and I'm gonna try not to double up information, but we wanted to kind of point out the proximity of other facilities, because that was something important that the neighbors were kind of talking about. So you can see to the north, the nearest facility is 1.25 miles away. That's a storage facility. And then to the south, it's 1.9 miles from the proposed parcel. And you can see the proposed project is right here in this parcel in the middle. And so this is kind of the adjacent uses, which I think Mr. Elam touched on the majority of those. There are a few commercial parcels along here as well, which I will touch on. One that is under construction to the south. And you can see that the stormwater treatment facility for the county is south of the project. And there's a little view, street view of the project there on the bottom corner. Same map that we saw in Mr. Elam's presentation. What I wanted to point out here is the commercial uses that are within a half a mile on this corridor. You know, this is kind of the main corridor of Hope Sound, if you will. So you can see there are a number of commercial uses around to the north, to the south. There's 2 or 3 kind of peppered along that corridor. So we think that kind of shows that that's an appropriate use. Major final site plan, 94,000 or so square feet, 3 stories. Building footprint is around 30,000 square feet. It has 2 covered loading spaces, 8 parking stalls, and 2 ADA spaces. And I've got a little bit of a more zoomed in site plan here. You can see how substantial the wetland area is. You know, you're looking at 470 so feet from the rear property line. And the rear property line, there's also a ditch back there, so there's more distance from the residential. It's approximately the same distance as the church. You can see where it says existing church. That's about where the church facility is. So we'll be about the same distance from the highway as the church is. You can see in blue our stormwater facility, and then the paving, the turn lanes, and, you know, the parking. And those 2 loading spaces are actually covered by the upper floors of the building. So a couple things on this, there's a lot of numbers on here, but what's important is the amount of wetland and also other preserve areas on this property. So with the wetland, you obviously have the wetland buffer, but we've also got some other rare native habitat up in the front. It was important that we kept that habitat because of the type of habitat it was, also because there's habitat on the adjacent stormwater facility. So we kind of tied those two together. What we want to kind of point out as it relates to the wetland, there's not a whole lot of exotics in there. So we're talking maybe, 10, 15%, somewhere around in there. We're not going to come in and start clearing all these trees out because they're exotics. It's going to most of it's going to be maintained. All the tall trees are going to be maintained. So there won't be this mass leveling of property that sometimes happens when there's a lot of exotics in a wetland. It's got to be cleared out, and everybody's like, well, how are you clearing a wetland? Well, because it's all exotic. So that won't happen in this case. You'll have all those large mature trees in the back to continue to help buffer the residents behind. So one of the other things that we wanted to point out that is very unique to this site because of the wetland, it's a 4-acre site. We're at like 1.39 acres developable. So that's important when you start talking about other uses and how much room they need, how much parking they may need, and that sort of thing. So it limits the type of use that can really go there. Some of the building features, just some more, some more renderings for you. Essentially, this is a secure facility. So when somebody wants to use their unit, they've got to go to those loading spaces. There's one access point. They have a reader, card reader, key card, access to the building. One entry point, one exit point. It's normal business hours, so people aren't going out there 12 o'clock at night to their storage unit and, turning all the lights on and lighting up all the property. One thing, you can see on the floor plan how there's paths all the way through and around the building so that there's one access point. It's completely secure. Everyone has their own code, so they know who's going in and out of the building at what times. There's security cameras. There's an office in the front corner that will be manned at normal business hours. So, why storage? Everyone kind of starts to rumble, well, we have plenty of storage units and all that. There's numerous residential areas around that have access to this corridor. And, we feel that because of all those residential units, there is the demand. And, when you look at national averages and things, it shows there's a demand. Typically, you're looking at 10% of the households that utilize. That's kind of a general average. So if you think about 1,000 homes, that's 100 units. So that's how you can kind of translate that. So that's kind of the end of my presentation. I'll turn it back over to Bob. And
Yeah. And I do, when I finish with Mr. Tatter, I'll, Jim, go back and answer, I think, a couple of your questions and clarify what took place on this process. So I forgot to do that earlier, so I apologize. So let me ask Mr. Tatter, Steve Tatter, to come up at this time. And Mr. Tatter, can you introduce yourself?
I'm Steve Tanner. What else do I need to share beside that?
Yeah, go ahead. Who you with?
Live Oak Capital Partners. Been buying, developing, owning, operating self-storage facilities for 15 years, all over the Southeast.
And have you been sworn in?
Yes.
And can you identify the paper I'm handing, sir?
It's my unsexy bio.
Okay. All right. And is it an up-to-date, accurate?
It is, yes.
Okay. I'd like for the record to reflect on turning that in, so.
I think these guys covered it fairly well. I've been in the storage business, as I mentioned, for 15 years. I think it's a quiet, safe, secure use. I think we are good neighbors, both to be near and also our contribution to the surrounding community in terms of, we are net taxpayers instead of drawing on the resources of communities. Very limited traffic. A modern storage facility is it blends with the surrounding community. And this design is reflective of many conversations we had with both the staff and with the neighbors nearby. As Mr. Raines had mentioned, we have met extensively with neighbors behind us, neighbors north of us, neighbors across the street. We work very hard to be accommodating and do our best to be welcome in the community, because quite frankly, that's who we're looking to for our future tenants. People view storage as an extension of their home. As Mr. Ulmer mentioned, 10% of households out there use storage. It's actually a little bit higher in Florida, and that's simply because we don't have basements here. People are reluctant to store in their attic because of the heat, and a lot of homeowners associations limit the number of cars you can park in your driveways. And so as a result, people just don't have enough storage space. And so as far as the safety and security, I think that's been addressed, but in the 15 years of owning storage facilities, I can tell you I can count on one hand the number of incidents we've had in those facilities, and 3 out of the 5 were just vandalism. People damaging walls, damaging bathrooms, things of that nature. Because we'll have in excess of 30 cameras around this facility. That and the fact that every person who enters the facility has to enter their own code into the door on camera. People who are lawbreakers are really reluctant to go into these kind of places. So, happy to answer questions if you'd like me to.
And I'll just finish up in response to Mr. Moyer's questions. So this has been the same applicant throughout the whole process, and the landowner is obviously the same person too, so nothing has changed. And it's not uncommon for all 3 things to go at once. What happened here in this particular case is after we came to this board, we went to the BCC. We were just moving forward at that time with the rezoning and the land use. And then when we got to the Board of County Commissioners, we did have a number of neighbors who we were not expecting to show up, given, we had a lot of comments. And I say a number, I'm talking like 5. And then Ms. Norris actually intervened. There was an intervener at the time. So we decided that we would just pull back and then try to meet with them again and talk to the people and try to address their concerns. So that was the reason why we did that. So that's why that went forward to that far. We pulled it back, and now we're just bringing it all forward together.
So was there a vote?
No,
BCC?
no, sir.
It
We
was
withdrew.
withdrawn?
We continued it to a date uncertain at that point in time before the item really got decided or voted on. There was no motion or anything like that.
There was even no presentation that day.
I'm trying to.
There wasn't. We took it off the agenda in the morning. Yes.
We didn't
So we-
even, I think we automatically came up because we talked to some of the people in the hallway and just asked for a continuance to a date uncertain because we wanted to meet with them. And interesting enough, the one lady who was an intervener, when we told her we'd like to set up a meeting with her, she wouldn't even meet with us. She refused.
Any other questions, Jim?
Well, I do have a question about the drainage in the canal in the back, because we've got a brand-new water treatment facility there, and those canals were backing up years ago. Is there access, is there an easement to keep that drainage conveyance clear?
The,
You have an
canals-
unrestored wetland in the back that,
the canal's
Yeah.
beyond the property.
yeah,
It's beyond the property, so
Okay,
it's in its own,
so there is access for the county to do the management in that canal that they
not
need to
through
do?
this, not through this property. It's got access on the other side, yeah. It's got its own, like, 50-foot wide canal easement or whatever it is, yeah. Yep.
What is it, Ms. Elder?
I would have to look, I'm not sure. I don't represent that department.
Yeah, I mean, we could pull up one of the exhibits. Well, I could maybe go back and show you.
I think we own the property.
I think it would calm Mr.
Yeah.
No, this area has had some pretty serious flooding issues, and it was almost always because the canals or the conveyances were blocked.
Yeah. So,
Please.
so you can see on this exhibit, beyond the green
Yep.
area, that's where the canal is.
Yep.
So it's got its own easement, its own, it might even be a right-of-way, its own, like, right-of-way.
That is right away.
Yeah,
So then, yeah, so it's our property.
yeah. I think it's part of the extension of
I
that
thought that was the
stormwater
case.
facility, yeah.
Anything else, Jim?
I think that's what I got.
Mr. Brown, do you have any questions for the applicant?
This, this is a total walk-in facility, right? Is what I'm looking at.
Yes.
A walk-in, yes.
Correct. Yeah, there's carts, and you load everything on, and, yeah. Yep.
So are those loading docks semi-tractor available, or are they only for private vehicles?
No, the idea is it would, not a tractor trailer, it'd be too tight area to do that. A 35-foot box truck, so a U-Haul or a Ryder, it's large enough that they can pull in there and turn around. You occasionally get those.
But it would not be a moving van storage
No, not
facility.
moving vans. The majority of folks that would be accessing the facility are simply, people driving up in their vehicle and unloading the Christmas decorations.
Okay.
I don't have it.
Do we have any interveners?
There are no interveners.
Okay. Do you have public comment? I do.
She just came in, I'm not sure she's got a,
There's one.
you want to tell her that? That's what she needs to do?
That's her, I believe. Okay, if you want to make public comment, miss, you have to fill out a card. Okay, excuse me, Bruce Montefusco.
Evening, gentlemen, ladies.
Well, come on up and introduce yourself.
I'm Bruce Montefusco, Hope Sound resident here for about 44 years. Watching everything grow, and things are moving, that's true. I have a couple of concerns here. One is that, I don't think it fits in with what Hope Sound looks like. It's kind of making Hope Sound start to look like Jupiter and Stewart, and that's not necessarily a good thing, in my opinion. So it doesn't really blend in, it doesn't really fit in, it's just going to be there, and it's going to be sitting right next to a church, which is very unique, and it's going to be in your face directly on US 1, so that's kind of a shock right there. Right? So then the additional things, it says, they're saying, according to their information, they're saying that 10% of homes use storage units, I think it was nationally, I think that's what the statement was. I don't know whether you guys can see this, but if you look at the little red dots on my phone, those are all storage facilities right near where this building is. They're starting at, I think, 2 of them on Bridge Road, on all the way up US 1 into Stewart. There's something like 12 or 14, if not more, storage facilities. How many storage facilities we need? They're saying, oh, we need this. Why? I don't think these storage facilities we already have are anywhere near capacity. Period. They're just not. Why will we need another one? I don't understand the steps behind this, other than, some guy wants to presumably build one for what particular reason. They're saying it's necessary. I don't think it's necessary at all. I think we have way adequate storage right now. I don't see I don't see any point to this. And that's in proximity. They're saying, okay, within 1.2 miles north or south or whatever it is. You sit there and you look at this, guys, okay? There's storage facilities all over the place around here. I just don't think another one is necessary. I don't think it's needed. So I can't see why you would want to change the zoning here from medium-density residential to commercial for this building, which is not needed. It's beyond me. So from what their arguments are, I don't see justification to approve this. Thank you.
You. Anyone else? Come on up. Hi, just state your name for the record.
Laura Whalen. I live just south of the proposed site where they want to build the storage facility, and I did not receive the notice of public hearing. So I'm just finding out about this in the last few days. So I've tried to do a little bit of investigation. My neighbor is an engineer, and we all live on Lexington Avenue, and the flooding is still a concern for us. I said to him, well, with the retention area there, it shouldn't be any longer. And he goes, actually, it's worse because there's a drainage pipe that all the water will run through. So if it floods that property, I don't know if anybody's familiar with Bernoulli's principle, but it's like a 6-lane highway trying to come down into one lane there. And the water is further going to be backed up. And I don't think there's anything that can change that. So the flooding is still a concern, and it'll flood our street. That's one concern I have. The other concern I have is that we have a lot of storage facilities in Hobe Sound that are not occupied at full occupancy. And we're going to change the zoning on this property from residential to commercial. So if the storage unit doesn't pan out, they have a commercial rating on that property, and you can put whatever you want there. And that's a real concern. And I live on Lexington, and we'll all be at the meeting next week. Those are concerns that I have, and we just went through a beautiful preserve that we had in our backyard being hacksawed in the middle of the night without warning, early in the morning, without any notice. And now we want to put in to the right of us, we want to, take away that lot, that land that we have to look at now, instead look at a white building. So those are my concerns. I'm happy to look further into the engineering side of it and what impact the flooding will have. But, as property owners, I understand they bought a piece of property and it's for residential use, and they don't want to put homes back there because it's a costly endeavor. So
Your time is up.
why make their problem our problem? That's my.
Okay, back to the board.
May I have an opportunity to address a couple of public comments?
Sure.
Thank you. So, I listened to Mr. Montefusco and state that, that there's enough storage facilities and we don't need any more. I don't know, maybe he's an expert in that. He didn't indicate that he was. And, I find it kind of ironic, somebody like Mr. Tedder is not going to make the kind of investment in this community and expend the money that goes into this unless they know what the market is. So when you ask the question of how many more do we need, well, the market will dictate that. And, you know, I've been, again, doing this for 28 years.
You're
And
going to get pretty good at it.
eventually, I probably will, just as I get ready to walk out the door. But, you know, these companies, like Mr. Tatter, and he can address it too, the market studies and stuff that they've done, they're not doing this stuff willy-nilly. And the market dictates how many we need, not the neighbors and their feelings on it. And I understand and I appreciate that. And then with response to Ms. Whalen, I hope I said that correctly. If she's got an engineer that thinks that, we're happy to talk to him. You know, he obviously isn't here tonight. She's citing him, but we can't ask him any questions or anything. So I would just keep that in mind. But I'm happy to get Mr. Ulmer together with him. If she wants to give me the name and number, I'll call him tomorrow and set up a meeting, and we can find out what concerns or what his feelings are on that. We're happy to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, again, back to us. Mr. Brown, do you have any questions of anyone else? Mr. Moore?
Couple observations. One is that I would prefer to have staff make clear some of those things, like this is why we don't have a land use change in the staff report. I'm still very concerned that we're approving a final site plan on a piece of property that we are not legally able to approve it on.
Well, the staff report only
Wait a
said,
minute, Mr. Go ahead,
Your
go ahead.
staff.
Mr.
Go ahead, I'm just, whenever you call me.
the staff report only, testifies to the fact that the proposal that is given to us, the site plan and all the construction documents and all the other materials comply for a building that is going to go into GC with commercial general future land use.
But it doesn't have it now.
No, it doesn't. And that's why the notes are in there that this is only valid if those things pass. Otherwise, it is not. It is not a permitted use, and that,
Mr.
yeah, go ahead.
Excuse me, Mr. Ellum. Paul Schilling, Growth Management Director, for the record. So, Mr. Moore, in response to your question, I would just respectfully request that you take into consideration Section B of the staff report, which indicates that and I can read it, but the future land use of the property is medium density with an RS6 residential zoning. Access to the property is from federal highway, as we know. The property is abutting conservation land to the south and a church to the north. And the proposed use is not permitted in the existing zoning and requires approval of a separate application amending the future land use to assign the commercial general future land use in the general commercial zoning district.
And I read that, and I, with the knowledge that I had then, I wouldn't be able to approve this
Go ahead, Bob.
because of what you just said.
No,
Wait, go ahead, Bob.
the purpose of this hearing tonight is to determine whether the application before you this evening, this is a quasi-judicial process, is to determine whether the application before you meets the requirements of the Comprehensive Plan and Land Development Code with respect to major site plan approval. So that's what the question is before you tonight. If that's the case, then you should make a recommendation of approval. The point is that if we don't get the land use and the zoning change, it's irrelevant. If we do get it, then it should be passed, because I think we've shown through competent substantial evidence that we meet all the requirements. So I don't understand what your dilemma is, because you can make the recommendation. You're not making an approval anyway, you're making a recommendation. Mm-hmm. And so you can recommend approval that we made it based upon this, contingent upon the land use and the rezoning. So I don't know why that's a point of contention for you with respect to whether we're meeting those requirements.
It's a point of contention in that it is not the way it has been done almost 99% of the time.
Actually,
And-
it's the way it's done most of the time.
Well,
But not with
almost,
such a broad
I agree.
distance.
yeah, I mean, it comes before us as a unit, or the property has already been approved and already zoned appropriately.
Correct.
And then a master site plan is done. And so I think that in this case, the cart is before the horse. Not that that's a giant problem, but I think that it would be better for staff's report to make that abundantly clear. And I think it would in fact be better if those land use changes and the zoning was changed before the site plan was approved. Because we don't have a certainty that it's going to be.
Well, but that's.
Wait a minute, guys. Ms. Elder, do you want to say something?
I was just going to say that a public hearing on the site plan will not go forward on Tuesday unless the future land use and the zoning is approved. And yes, typically, all three would travel together, but the first two just traveled independently, so you're still having this third hearing. So if they were all together, or if it's independent, you would still be in the same dilemma, I guess is what I'm saying, because the first two wouldn't have been approved anyway, even if they were here today. So it's contingent upon those first two being approved. We won't even have the rezoning if the future land use map amendment isn't approved. So the other two will not happen. So there is some safeguards there.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Bob, thank you.
That's fine. Yep, that's fine.
Jimmy? You want to go on with other comments?
No, I mean, I'm sticking to my position on this in that I really think that it would make my life easier if the descriptions about what happened previously were in the staff report. And I've been here for a while. Dr. Brown hasn't been. I don't know if you were able to get what you needed to get out of the staff report, other than what you were being asked to approve was something that was not legal under the comp plan.
Well, I understand where you're coming from, Jim, completely. And it's so unusual that we have to remember what happened a year ago. However, that's not a reason not to move this forward. And I'm not saying you can't just vote no, but I think we need to move this forward. And I'd like to do it with a motion, and then if you vote no, because there's so few of us, then vote no. But I'd like to let it move forward so that the commission gets it with a recommendation from this LPA. Because if we do not vote on this, then there won't be any recommendation. And I think it's inherent on us to always move stuff forward with a recommendation.
Or not.
Or not, you can vote no, but if we never get a motion out of this, we won't vote at all. It won't go at all, except with no recommendation, no anything. There won't be a negative vote either. As to whether they should build this type of a facility, I don't think it's government's job to tell the private sector what to do. I wouldn't care if they had 15 of them within a mile. Not my job. My job is to, if it's legal to go there, then it should go there. If he wants to spend money and he goes out of business, that's the way our society and our, excuse me, and our government works. So that doesn't concern me, just like when we spoke about the Wawa. Doesn't concern me if there was 12 gas stations within a mile. As to the flooding, Jim knows much more about this than I'll ever know. However, I have to trust that staff knows more than I, and if they're recommending and they're saying that that it is not a problem, I don't think as an LPA member I can say, no, you're wrong. So if the criteria is met, I think it's incumbent on us to vote on this and move it forward. So I'm going to ask that we just get a motion and then vote however you want so that we can vote with a recommendation.
Okay. I will move for staff's recommendation.
I second.
Okay? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
But I would, please, staff, when we have something that is like this, just a paragraph to bring us up to speed on why we don't have a future land use and zoning that complies with this request. I mean, I'm not a giant fan of storage units, first of all, but I also think that this area does have a history of flooding, and we need to do whatever we can to protect it. I think, quite honestly, because it's a big piece of wetland, that building a residential development in there would be challenging. This is probably better than some of the other commercial applications that might be allowed there, and I'm hoping that it will be a better neighbor. But I really, it concerned me when I read this, and then I started to remember some of the stuff. I thought it had been approved, but right now, it's not approved. And so it is an unusual set of circumstances, but I think it wouldn't be very difficult for the staff report to clue us in as to why.
And I think that's a reasonable accommodation that staff should make, if this ever happens in the future.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Do we have any, go ahead.
I did look up the last LPA, if you want, I know we've already voted, but if you want the information, it went before the LPA on June 1st, 2023. Both the future land use and the rezoning was a 2-2, so there was no recommendation going to the board on
That's
those.
what I remembered.
Yeah.
And I think it was concernful that it wasn't unanimous at all, and there was a substantial number of people in the audience. And, I think that with Live Local and a bunch of the other options, this is better than what it might be.
That's true. Okay, is there any other business to come before us tonight?
A couple
So,
things. One is the
11th?
next meeting. So we have on the 20th of February, we have several applications on that day. So I would just request if anyone's going to be out.
I'll be here.
Thank you.
I will not be here.
Thank you.
I will be here.
Thank you.
Okay, is there anything else? Seeing none, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Shall we adjourn?
We are adjourned.